Hey guys, I'm starting to do some work on the Airline radio chassis, but before I dive too deep into it, I figured I better check some more of the major components. In the earlier installment, we checked the power transformer. It seems to be good. Well, now I want to check the output transformer. Well, secondary looks good. It's less than 2 ohms resistance, but primary is open, infinite resistance. So I gotta track down a replacement. Shouldn't be too hard. I know Hammond makes one, and there's probably others out there. This is a single-ended 42 output. I believe it's wired as a triode, so nothing too fancy there. Class A operation, I imagine. So one of like Hammond's universal single-ended output transformer should be fine. Something that's like, I don't know, 5 watts more or less should be fine. Try to find one that will mount in these holes. Meanwhile, I will continue to work on the radio, replacing the old resistors and capacitors. I did a little research online and found that a single-ended type 42 typically has an output impedance of about 7,000 ohms, and I can guesstimate my voice coil impedance at about 4 ohms. So I looked at what are my options out there for newly manufactured output transformers, and well, here's what we got from Hammond. Universal, we can do 2,500, 5,000, or 10,000 into source. Probably 4 ohm, 10,000 would be close enough, or maybe 4 ohm, 5,000. And I'd want to go at least 5 watts. Probably 8 or 10 would be better based on what I read. The mounting ears, that's the D dimension. The existing one was 2 3/8. So these, the B or the C or the D, would all be a bit larger. I think there's some room on the chassis though, so I can spread at least another half an inch or so would not be a problem. However, I looked up the price on these and they are about $45 each. Well, I then looked over at Edcore, and they have one that is even better because it's 8,000 ohms into 4 ohms and 10 watts, and it's only $18.80. And the tabs are spaced a little more than 2 3/8, but not too bad. So I think that's what we're going to go with. 2.8 inches. And there's enough room on the chassis. I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. So I'm going to go ahead and order one of these up. They say it's built to order, but I'm going to add one to my cart and go through the ordering process and see what happens. Hopefully won't be a long delay until it arrives. I hunted around online a bit more and found another possibility on eBay. Single-ended output transformer, 8 VA, another way of stating 8 watts, 5 or 7,000 ohm primary impedance, and 3.28 or 16 ohm output impedance. In other words, it's a tapped primary, tapped secondary, so I would pick the 7,000 here and 3.2 here. Made in China, imported to the U.S., supposedly made with good quality components, and about 22 bucks and $8 shipping. There's a picture of it. Mounting centers, 2.82, so a little bit wider apart. So I could go with that. However, thanks to Glenster on Antique Radio Forum, I've got another option. He looked up in the Thordarson replacement transformer catalog, found a section for 3.5 ohm voice coil. It's pretty much what I've got. And here we go, 7,000 ohm on the primary, 40 milliamp or 8 watt on the output, and the mounting centers are 2 3/8, so it's exactly what I've got. Originally cost $3.30 way back in the day. Well, Thordarson's no longer around. However, Playthings of the Past has one for 10 bucks. They have a minimum order of 20, so I'm going to look around, see if I can find some other stuff to order, and then contact them and make sure they actually have it in stock and place an order. I ordered some stuff from them for my 3710 Philco project, and they arrived pretty quickly, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'm almost done recapping the radio. all done up in here, which is the RF amp, the oscillator, IF amp, first detector. I'm down to here, which is 42 output tube and the rectifier. So we got a little bit to do. A couple more caps in here, one or two resistors, and then put in two new filter electrolytics. Now, how can I try this out without having an output transformer? Well, I pulled out this Philco speaker. Played around with this a little while ago as a spare speaker I had. I attempted to recone it using a modern speaker cone from Matt Electronics. Well, the problem I found is that it has a flimsy foam surround that doesn't quite have the right feel of the original, but it also sticks up above the frame. So when you put it in the enclosure, unless you had spacers, it doesn't work out so well. And the speaker on this is a bit damaged, so it's not really, doesn't sound very good. But I think we can use it. Now, I do have to make a little change here because there's only 3 lugs on this speaker. To see clearly, I got 2 wires here for the field coil. One is going right over to this lug, which is one side of the primary. Well, that's because this radio uses the field coil for B+, and B+ goes to one side of the output transformer. Well, one side of this output transformer is also going to B+. That's this guy right here. Goes around and over to plus on the filter caps. But remember, the field coil / filter choke on this radio is in the return leg, so it is not common to one side of the output transformer. One side's going through a resistor to ground, and the other side is going to the center tap on the output transformer. It's the exact opposite side of the power supply. Well, what I can simply do is disconnect this wire. This is from also from a single-ended radio. I think Philco typically had like a 6F6, which is basically a 42 and a different basing. So I think this is probably going to work out just fine for the output impedance. Field coil I'm not so sure about, but I don't think that's super critical anyway. So let's give this a shot. Now, I haven't placed my order yet because I need to fill up the minimum order. Well, it got me thinking, one thing to play things of the past sells is tubes. I have not checked these tubes yet, so if some of these are weak, I can order them from Playthings of the Past along with the output transformer. Now, check out these tubes. Most of them say Ward's Super Airline on the base. In fact, all but 2, which makes me think that these are the original tubes. The only 2 that don't say Ward's Super Airline, we got a 6B7 Jan Tung Sol, and we've got a GM Delco 6D6. Also notice that on a lot of these tubes the bases are quite loose. Now that's especially a problem in a radio like this, because every tube except for the 42 and the 80 have shields. A couple of the shields are missing, I can replace those. Well, they're the type just like Philco had on their early radios, or 30s radios, is that there's a raised base. What that means is when the tube is down in the socket all the way, there's not a whole lot to grab on except the glass envelope, which tends to make the bases loose or maybe break off entirely. Well, it turns out that none of the tubes were bad, and only the 6B7 was weak. So I'm going to go ahead and order up one of these. But just so happens I'm also going to be working on a Philco 118 coming up soon, and that has some more bad tubes, or missing tubes. So between those 2, I can definitely fill up my order. Alright, got things hooked up. Now, of course, the output transformer is not here, so instead of the voice coil being hooked up, it's the primary on this transformer. So it actually ends up being hooked between pins 2 and 3 on the 42 output tube between the plates, and I think that's the screen. So let's get this Plugged in. Oh, and I got my voltmeter on the main B+ ply. Is off, variac on. Here we go. Dial lamps are lit. B+ coming up. Good, I got 450 volt caps in there. Looks like we peaked out at about 370, so that's cool. Very definitely got a hum. Just change the band switch. Oh, still hum. Tuning's not doing anything. So it sure seems like we've got some really serious 60 hertz hum going through things. So it seems I probably have something wrong, although I'm not really clear on what that might be. So it's got to be energy going to the field coil, otherwise the speaker wouldn't be doing anything. I definitely have the filter caps in place, and I'm pretty darn sure they're right, but I'll double check that. And we know the rectifier's working. Okay, there's actually very, very little ripple on the B+. So like 200 millivolts, so I really don't think that's what's happening. Seems more likely it could be a problem with there not being a tube shield in place, or we're getting some hum getting into the output tube somehow. Definitely responds with the volume control. That's a good sign. So we know we've got B+, and the volume control is good, and the 42 output tube is doing its thing, and I guess this filter choke is fairly compatible because we've got good B+ with very little. Oh, hang on. Look what happened when I turned up the speaker. I turned up the volume, rather. I had a huge amount of ripple. Or maybe not a huge amount, a couple volts. That's actually probably okay. It's just because the speaker's drawing a lot more current now. 2 volts ripple. It's substantial, but not crazy amount. And it's just in line with the speaker drawing a lot of current, more than the filter caps can completely filter out the ripple from. Well, I've got a voltage chart here, and it seems like a pretty simple thing to check. I sprayed some deoxit in the band switch and worked it back and forth really well. Cleaned up the tube socket pins too, and it seems like the local oscillator is working now. Tuning around the band now. And here's the shortwave band. Pick up anything now. Doing a little something. I don't have much of an antenna hooked up. Something else I did is I put a shield over that too. Still clearly got some problems. I turned the volume up too loud. That could very well be feedback because I'm still missing some shields over here. So we got a bit of a blue glow inside the 42 output tube too. You can hear a little bit of sound. Here it is with a bit of an antenna hooked up. It's kind of working.
Everybody does.
It is 5 o'clock, so.
And It's 5 o'clock somewhere, including here.
The Top 5 at 5 on the Rokon Show, brought to you by Builder Supply Outlets. Home improvement at true outlet prices of 40 to 60% off.
The Top 5 on the Rokon Show. Let's go!
All right. Checking in, eh?
I dug up a couple tube shields, not exactly the right diameter, but I do the trick. And now, don't get that horrible feedback as I tune around the dial.
Heard this morning in that comment.
Check out Home Sweet Home Chicago Saturdays, 10 a.m. to noon on WLS AM 890 for a mortgage. It's an equal housing Illinois record. Could be evenly matched, and they certainly so far.
I think you're going to love this house. It just came on the market, and so the news that people are exposed to sometimes, if you get a lot of your news online.
It's SIU Carbondale. See for yourself at their next open house. Gain experience. Experience SIU. Visit SIU.com.
I posted I wanted to add an antique radio form for a couple tube shields. Hopefully something will turn up. Meanwhile, I started cleaning up the chassis a bit. And I'm going to turn my attention to the tuning capacitor. Notice how it's rocking around very loosely. Well, that's because it's got rubber mounts underneath that have gone rock hard. So I want to see about replacing them. So there's one right here, and one there, and one there. I think I've got some stuff on hand that'll work. There's a rubber bit that goes down there, and then a rubber bit up on the top side as well. I managed to get 3 new shock mounts installed. Not the easiest thing to do. Unfortunately, I had to end up pulling out the entire tuning mechanism to get them in. So in addition to undoing the grounding braid, I had to undo the wires running down to that. And I had to undo the dial hands here because I need to pull this forward to get this shaft through this hole, and then I could lift the whole thing up. While doing so, I realized that the hands are just attached by some flat-bladed screws, so that was easy enough to get them out. Here's a look at the dial pointer, which definitely is broken off. I mean, now that I take a closer look, I can clearly see that this is the frequency, and up here are the call letters, broken up by west, central, and east. So example, here is around 720, and if we project up this way to get to the central, then we get WGN AM 720 right there. So it would be nice to repair this or get a replacement hand that extends across the entire dial. Alright, so that is now on there and cushioned and secure. So I'm still hunting down for some tube shields, because without them, yeah, this thing gets pretty crazy. Definitely gotta get shields on both of these tubes. And notice on this one, the 6B7, which is a detector and first audio amp right next to the output tube, is actually shielded. So there's a shielded wire going up to the grid cap, and there should be a shield around that too. Without shields around both of these tubes, things really get squirrely. What I'm curious to see now, though, is can I sacrifice a shield off of any of these 2 tubes and put them over here and get this to work reasonably well without those horrible feedback oscillations. I took a shield off of the oscillator and the first detector tube, mixer tube. And it's alright. I guess for now we can get away with that shields on those 2 tubes. So right now I'm waiting on a replacement output transformer and a stronger 6B7. The one that's in there is kind of borderline. So with the proper output transformer or replacement that's, I'm pretty sure, good, close to the original, and a 6B7, I'm hoping it'll work even better. And of course I can go through and do an alignment.
Thank you so much.
It's an interesting thing to have dial pointers on the volume and bass. So we'll see if this holds true. Is this more bassy? Yes, it is.
How did you get into that role?
Well, initially started when I took a job as being a secretary for one of the pastors years ago, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And
As he is currently constituted.
1-877-29
From Lakeshore Drive, inbound time 40. I'm wearing my program director beater. I'll make the line.
The freight sale got equity first off and watch for a slow ramp to westbound Lake Cook. Skip on Air 1059.
This report is sponsored by Farmers Insurance.
deer dancing across the hood of a car to a car driving.
All right, so I guess that'll be it until the output transformer shows up and I can mount it down and wire it in properly.
We are farmers.
Jay Trav again, weather together on the 8th.